So the offseason's over.
Mhm.
Niners added a lot of players to their team, but did they actually improve their biggest weaknesses, which would be the right side of the offensive line and the run defense? I think most Niner fans and analysts would agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So those are the biggest weaknesses. I guess we'll start on one side of the ball. I mean, let's start on the offense if you want. On the offensive side of the ball, the biggest weakness was, like you just mentioned, the right side of the offensive line. So they had to address that. Did they with Pooney? I think that's a step in the right direction.
But possibly, yeah. Yeah, we'll see what they do. But that's if it ain't Pooney, it's no one. So it's gotta be.
Yeah. I mean, first thing I'll say is even if they replace nobody, it's entirely possible that this existing group, because of the continuation, could be better than they were last year. I would still say not good enough. And that can't be the move. Like, we need to improve our right side of our line. Let's just bring everyone back one more year and they'll be better. That's not an actual move in the right direction. Pooney, I really like, and I think they got a good value for him in the third round. I wanted him to draft center first round, tackle second round, and Pooney third round, which is probably not realistic. But I will say that I do like the Pooney pick. My question, though, that I'm wondering is, if you look at this offensive line, to me, it goes Trent Williams, Aaron Banks, 1, 2. I don't think anyone questions 1. Some people question whether Aaron Banks is the second best guy on this team or not. I think it's clear to me. On the offensive line, Aaron Banks is number 2. Then after that, honestly, the third best is either going to be Pooney or Feliciano. And so a lot of people are predicting that Pooney's going to take that right guard spot. But if you take that right guard spot, now you're taking out Burford, you're taking out Feliciano, and you still have your two biggest weaknesses, which are Jake Brendel and Colt McKivitz. So I'm very curious what they're going to do with this offensive line. Is Pooney here for the future next year? Are they going to roll with that same starting five they had in the Super Bowl? And then they're just going to, work Pooney in and develop him and get him ready for next season? Or are they going to insert Pooney right away? And if they do, where are they going to do? Where is that going to be? Is that going to be at right guard? And if they put him at right guard, what are they going to do with Feliciano and Burford? So I have a lot of questions about that. I think it's TBD, but I do think they got better in general adding Pooney because I think he is a more talented tackle than McKivitz. He's a more talented center than Brendel. He's more talented than Burford, probably even Feliciano.
Yeah, I have a tough time seeing Pooney starting week 1. They like Feliciano. They like Brendel and McKivitz enough because they've been here a while. So it seems to me that Pooney's going to probably start either in a year or two or after an injury. And yeah, maybe he could eventually take over at center, but I think I don't like the idea of playing guys at center who didn't play center in college. Like, can you really snap the ball consistently every game? And if not, are you a center? I'd like to see him more at right tackle in the future. I know he's not going to be like probably a Pro Bowl right tackle, but could he be better than McKivitz? Yeah. I think he can. I think he absolutely can. So I'd like to see that actually kind of sooner rather than later. They could say that they're going to play him at right guard, but Feliciano was pretty good there last year. And I want to see what Spencer Burford has. He's still only 23. Probably young. I think Spencer Burford's probably younger than Dominic Pooney. I would like to see that. But Pooney at right tackle, I want to see that.
I'm really concerned about this offensive line still, and they may be okay this year, but you got McKivitz, who's not very good, and he's got one more year after this. You got Burford, who has yet to prove that he is a starter in this league. Like, he's had moments, he has started games, but he hasn't proven that he is that guy yet. And he could. Maybe his natural position might be tackle. Maybe they pop him out there. Feliciano's on a year-to-year basis. He said this is his last run. Brendel, I think I forget what Brendel's contract is. Is this 1 year for Brendel as well? So
no, I think they gave him an extension. Let me check real quick.
And then the other thing is
exactly when he signed.
Aaron Banks is up this year. And then you got Trent Williams, who is
Brendel signed through 2026, like Trent Williams. Somehow he got a 4-year extension. Brendel.
So I don't think they touch him. I think he's probably going to be your center through that time, at least, and through 2025.
I would agree.
That's it. But then you got Aaron Banks, who and that's not a good thing. Let me back up. Jake Brendel is probably going to be your guy through at least 2025. That's not a good thing. to be real. Like, he is not a higher echelon center. So it's
No.
not really it's not a strength there. And then
Mm-mm.
you got Aaron Banks, who's only signed through this year. And they didn't even talk about extending him this offseason, which worries me because maybe they're not going to. And maybe Pooney's here just to replace him, which means they didn't upgrade
Maybe.
at all.
Yeah.
And then
That's
you
the
got
thing.
Trent
You look
Williams.
at some of the guard contracts in free agency this year, they were ridiculous. Like 16, 17 million for guys who haven't even been to Pro Bowls. So that could be Banks.
Right. So maybe the plan is we got McKivitz, we're good. We got Burford and Feliciano, we're good. We got Brendel through 2026, we're fine. Trent Williams, until he retires, we're good. Maybe he's here to replace Banks. And if that's the case, they haven't improved at all on the offensive line, and they still have all these glaring needs. I think the 49ers are going to regret not investing more draft capital over these last 2 drafts in offensive line. I think at some point they're going to really regret that. To me, that's a huge weakness. And maybe they improved a little bit this year to answer this in question. To answer, did they improve? Maybe a little bit with depth overall. But are they going to be able to run on the right side effectively now by the moves they made? I would say probably not. It's probably going to be similar to what we saw last year.
To me, what's crazy about their offseason is that like they almost operated as if they have no weaknesses. Like, yeah, our offensive line could be better, but we went to the Super Bowl and it wasn't the reason we lost. And we're the number 1 offense in the league in terms of efficiency. So how bad is our offensive line? It's like, it's obviously the weakest of your team. Like, obviously the weakest of your team. And then on defense, run defense is an issue for this team. It was a huge issue in the NFC Championship game and the game before that against the Packers. And it was an issue against the Browns and frequently throughout the season.
Yeah.
What did you do to improve? You cut Eric Armstead. Okay. Understand why, but doesn't improve your run defense. And then you added Malik Collins and Leonard Floyd. Okay. I don't know. Seems like this could still be an issue.
The thing about Eric Armstead, I was never a big Eric Armstead guy. I didn't see what people saw in him, and maybe I don't know ball. I don't know what it is. I was just never a big Eric Armstead fan. I really never saw him do much. I feel like he really wasn't that guy to justify his contract. And I think the 49ers eventually agreed, obviously, because they moved on from him. So he was also injured very often. So he wasn't available. So if you're not going to be available and you're not that great, it was probably smart for them to move on from Eric Armstead. But when your replacement is Jordan Elliott and Malik Collins, that's kind of a duo. One's better at pass rush, one's better at run stopping. And maybe those guys, they're more healthier. They have a history of being healthy more than Eric Armstead did. So that's good. They're going to be there. And they're a little better at the run. One of these guys, I'm trying to remember, is it Elliott or Collins is better at run? One of them, I looked at their numbers. I can't remember. One of these guys, Elliott, right? Elliott has actually better stats than Eric Armstead on less snaps against the run. So Elliott might actually be an improvement over Eric Armstead against the run. But then the other guy, Collins, is more of a pass rushing defensive tackle. But after that, you don't really have any depth. One of the biggest needs to me for the 49ers was defensive tackle, and they didn't even get one. Now, they've signed a big, massive nose tackle type dude in UDFA, and maybe he'll work out. But it's just they rely on to fix their biggest needs with these later on picks. And there's a reason why these guys aren't going higher in general. You can't count on finding a Brock Purdy every single season. So it's just a lack of investment in the trenches that concerns me about this team, and it has been for a while.
Yeah. And what's crazy too is when you would press Kyle about the run defense last year, he always wants to act like no one really knows football, and whatever the conventional wisdom is on a topic is wrong. So you'd ask him, but hey man, you're really struggling against the run. You're not setting those edges. You seem like you're getting, whooped in the trenches. He's like, nah, it's a secondary. We're really not feeling like we need to. It's really the secondary's problem. Like, okay, so you don't address the trenches in the draft, and Hufanga coming back should help. Mustafa should help, but I still feel like you're getting blown off the ball by the Lions in the NFC Championship game. I'm sure that Malik Collins is really going to change much about that.
Why are
Yatur
you
Gross Matos, Jordan Elliott, maybe.
your run stopping? Your solution for run stop can't rely on the third level, right? If your solution for stopping the run is our safeties, at that point you've already given up 2-3 yards before they even get there. I just think there needed to be a bigger investment on, and let's be honest, Javon Hargrave did not play well against the run. Like he'd never really been known as that guy anyways, and he kind of declined from his time with the Eagles. So Javon Hargrave wasn't tremendous against the run either.
Yeah.
So to me, I don't know if the 49ers are going to improve against the run necessarily. And I think a lot of people that I've talked to say it was more of a scheme thing, right? Like the way they position their safeties. But again, to me, if you're relying on the third level to stop the run, that's not it, right? You need penetration up the middle, pause by your defensive tackles.
So it was schematic. Let's say it's schematic. They get rid of Steve Wilkes. They bring in Brandon Staley. He was a head coach with the Chargers for 3 years. First year, his defense in terms of yards per attempt allowed ranked 28th. His second year, it ranked 32nd out of 32 teams. This past year, it was 13th, and then he got fired. So I'm not necessarily certain that Brandon Staley is the run defense doctor. He plays a lot of two high safeties, just like Steve Wilkes. Maybe he'll disguise his coverages a little bit and maybe have some more exotic pressures than Steve Wilkes. But in terms of run defense, it seems like this is going to be an issue again.
Right. Yeah, it does seem like that. And then if you consider Dre Greenlaw is coming back from an injury and may not be available, it's concerning. Like to me, you come into the season, your biggest needs are stopping the run and building up that right side of the offensive line and just investing it in general for the future. And I don't know how great of a job they did at either. And I think that's my concern going into the season. Are they going to be one of the best teams in the NFL? Sure. But how many weapons do you need? Really, there's only one ball, right? There's only one ball. You have Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, John Jennings, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, and now you got Ricky Pearsall. Great. There's only one ball. At what point do you invest in the offensive line? At what point do you really just focus in on stopping the run? Those are the needs that this team had, and I don't think they spent enough resources on it early enough. Like even the second pick, Renardo Green may end up being fantastic, but they were pretty good at corner going into this year. In the future, they need corners, right? Because these guys are on one-year contracts. But their corner room actually looked better than it has in a long time going into this draft. So they spent a pick on Ricky Pearsall, which wasn't immediate. It's not an immediate need. It's not. He may end up being great, but it's not an immediate need. I don't care what anyone says. Same with Renardo Green. I don't really see him as an immediate need. They got Diamador Lenore. They got Charvarius Ward. They improved over last year with Rock Ya-Sin and Isaac Yiadom, who played fantastic for the Saints. So even Renardo Green, I don't see as an immediate need. Like both of those picks are for 2025, really. So I just feel like they had an opportunity to upgrade in their biggest weaknesses this year. There were some great defensive tackles available at pick 31. There were some great centers available at 31. And in the second round, they had some tackle options that were available that made sense. And they didn't invest in either, which is weird to me because that was clearly their biggest need to almost everybody that watches this team.
Yeah, and when you look at their roster now, you say like, oh, like how our defense is going to stop all these weapons. When you add Pearsall and Cowing to what they already had, it's like, yeah, that's true. It's tough. They got a lot of weapons on the field, but at the same time, you mentioned it, like they already don't give Ayuk the ball enough. That's the problem. You're trying to justify giving him this extension that's going to pay him $30 million a year or close to it. And you're thinking, well, okay, but we got to get him like at least 135 targets. Like, well, where are those coming from? You don't give the ball to Kittle enough. So now you're going to carve. You don't get the ball to Jennings enough. Now you're going to carve out a role for Pearsall too. It just seems like overkill.
How many targets? How many catches is Ricky Pearsall going to have this year? Do you think?
Over under 9.5.
I had 25 as the over under. So, I mean, Juwan Jennings had 19. So
how many do Ray have?
Not many, but I don't know.
Not
but
many.
I know Juwan Jennings had 9. Do you think he's going to get more or less?
You also got to get the ball to use check. He's still on the team. He gets 15 catches a year.
It's
At
too many
least.
weapons. Too many
Yep.
weapons and not enough base, right? Not enough work in the trenches, not enough investment. If you look at the
Too
NFL,
much
all of our
trouble. Too much
opponents
trouble. Not enough base.
is right. Too
Too much
much trouble,
trouble.
not enough base, right?
That's what it
They
is.
got all they have is 6x9s in the rear dash. They have no base tubes in the trunk.
It's true. You
Yeah.
got that 12-inch sub like I do.